Both of you, on your knees. Wipe it. Now. But we didn't spill anything, please, sir. The fluorescent lights in Concourse C stung their eyes, humming like an electric warning. Travelers rolled past with carry-on bags, glancing, then looking away. On the polished tile sat 12-year-old twins Aaron and Miles Carter, identical in fear and posture, pressed low by authority they hadn't earned or deserved. A uniformed airport crew supervisor, Trent Wallace, mid-40s, stiff jaw, dropped a stained rag onto the ground between them. Passengers saw a mess. They pointed at you, Trent said, voice clipped, eyes cold. Do your part and clean the floor. A nearby janitor cart gleamed under the airport's bright skylights, untouched. No one spoke for the boys. Aaron's throat tightened. Miles swallowed twice. Both wore matching gray hoodies, Chicago Robotics Expo 2025, creased from travel, not work. A woman at gate C-19 lifted her phone slightly, then hesitated, tension between right and risk. A flight attendant slowed, frowned, then continued boarding. Injustice lived loud, and silence lived louder. Aaron whispered, "We didn't do anything wrong." Trent leaned down, voice barely above a hiss. "You kids want to fly. You show some respect and clean." A polished badge clipped to Trent's belt flashed as he shifted, operations crew lead. Authority assumed, not questioned. Miles reached for the rag with trembling fingers. A tear slicked across the tile before the cloth ever touched it. The airport intercom chimed neutral, as though the world were normal. But 30 yards away, striding down the concourse with rolling footsteps and a leather briefcase, their father, David Carter, approached the gate, unaware. He had just ended a call, voice low and confident, the tone of a man accustomed to making decisions, not obeying them. His jacket was navy tailored. A black security badge hung at his chest, brushed steel lettering, small but unmistakable to anyone who looked closely. Carter, Apex Aerospace, Chief Executive Officer. He saw the boys. He stopped. His hand tightened around the handle of his briefcase, knuckles whitening. Travelers drifted aside like a tide breaking around stone. His gaze held no fury, only clarity. Cold, precise. He walked toward Trent slowly, each step deliberate, each breath measured, not loud, not rushed, just controlled, like a man about to change the outcome. Enjoying this? Tap subscribe for tomorrow's story. David Carter closed the distance in silence, 15 feet 10:05. Aaron, still kneeling, noticed first. His breath hitched. "Dad." Miles looked up, eyes red, rag limp in one shaking hand. David's voice was calm, steady, the kind that made grown men rethink their tone. "Why are my children on the ground?" The question hung like a dropped pin in a cathedral. Trent turned, startled. He adjusted his belt, straightened his vest, found authority again only after a pause. "Sir, these boys made a mess in the terminal. We maintain standard procedure for..." David raised one finger, not loud, not rude, but final. "What mess?" Trent blinked. "A spilled drink." David scanned the floor, spotless. Not a drop. Not a smear. Only two trembling boys and a rag that never should have touched their hands. "Who saw them spill it?" he asked. A gate agent behind the podium stiffened, glancing down and away. A few passengers shifted, sensing a story forming. But words remained scarce, truth hiding behind convenience. Trent stepped closer, shoulders squared. "Sir, we had reports. And when minors cause disruption, we have the right to..." David's voice sharpened like a paper edge. "You had a right to verify first." The airport's PA chimed overhead, boarding call for gate C-21. It sounded like a reminder that life continued, even when dignity didn't. He knelt between his sons, one hand on each shoulder. His touch was gentle, but his presence did not soften. "You too, okay?" Aaron nodded quickly, but Miles whispered, "We didn't do it. I promise." David stood again, taller, unhurried. His next words measured like steps in marble halls. "My children are not janitorial staff. They are students returning from a national robotics competition. They are guests, travelers, humans." A ripple moved through nearby onlookers. Someone recorded now, carefully, quietly, but respectfully. Not for spectacle, but for truth. Trent's jaw tightened. "Sir, this isn't about who they are. It's protocol." David looked directly into his eyes. "No. Protocol prevents misuse of authority. Protocol begins with fairness. You bypassed both. For the first time, Trent hesitated. He expected anger. Raised voice. Scene. Instead, he got precision. Restraint. Something harder to dismiss. David's hand brushed the badge at his chest, not showing it yet, only reminding himself it existed. The embossed steel glinted beneath the terminal lights, a quiet secret, a power unspent. The supervisor 2 gates over watched now, whispering into a radio. A small chain reaction, concern, curiosity, forming like storm clouds. David breathed once. We can resolve this properly. Or we can escalate it professionally. Decide which path you prefer before I take the next step. Trent's posture faltered. Passengers slowed to listen. The air conditioner hummed steadily overhead, the only sound brave enough to fill the space between authority and consequence. The boys waited. The watching crowd waited. And David Carter, calm, composed, prepared his next move, because in the next few seconds, everything would turn. A small cluster of travelers formed around the scene, not a chaotic crowd, but something quieter, weightier. Concern. Witnessing. The kind of presence that made truth harder to bury. David kept his posture steady, hands loose at his sides. Supervisor Wallace, he said, using the name printed on Trent's badge with deliberate respect. I'm offering you a moment to reconsider your approach. Trent shifted, sweat gleaming at his temple. Authority was a coat he suddenly felt too warm inside. I didn't mean to cause distress, he muttered. But someone has to maintain order. Kids run wild around here. David's voice didn't raise, it deepened. Order without fairness is not order. It's convenience. The twins stood slowly, guided by their father's still open hand. Their shoulders straightened, rag abandoned. The lighting above reflected in the polished floor like a stage, and they were no longer kneeling actors. They were rising witnesses. A TSA officer, Marla Jenkins, approached with measured steps. Late 30s, composed, clipboard tucked beneath one arm. Her eyes scanned a scene with practiced neutrality. Is there an issue here? David turned to her, respectful but firm. Yes. I found my children kneeling and being ordered to clean a floor without evidence they caused any mess. We'd like clarity and accountability, please. Marla's brow pinched. Sir, did you file a complaint? Not yet, David replied. But I'd like to understand who authorized disciplinary action against minors with no verification. Trent inhaled sharply. We acted on reports. Reports from whom? David asked. Silence again. Not long, but long enough. The woman near gate C-19, the one who hesitated earlier, finally stepped forward. She held her phone like a shield she wished she didn't need. I was here the whole time, she said softly. No spill. No, miss. These boys were sitting quietly with their backpacks. Her testimony was gentle, but in the quiet terminal, it echoed like a bell. Marla nodded. Thank you, ma'am. That helps. Trent looked cornered now, not attacked, just seen. Maybe I misread the situation, he muttered. But rules exist to keep this place running. David took one slow step forward, not threatening, simply present. Rules are strongest when followed correctly. When misused, they harm those with less power. My boys learned that today. Everyone watching learned it too. Passengers shifted, sharing glances. Truth had weight, and it gathered like gravity. Marla exhaled. Sir, if you like, we can move to a mediation office. File a report. Resolve formally. David's gaze was steady, but he wasn't done. Not yet. I'd like a higher duty manager, please. Someone with decision authority beyond this concourse. Trent blinked. That's not necessary. We can just. David tapped the badge on his chest once, a quiet metallic click like a lock turning. He didn't lift it. He didn't announce it. He simply reminded the room there was more power here than they assumed. Call them, he said. We will do this properly. Tension spread, but so did clarity. Miles breathed easier. Aaron unclenched his fists. The floor between them wasn't a place of shame anymore, only memory. Marla nodded and reached for her radio. I'll request senior management. David thanked her calmly, because the next person to arrive would change everything. The request for senior management echoed through Marla's radio, clear, crisp, irrefutable. Above, arrival screens flickered with gate changes. Rolling luggage wheels hummed over tile. Life moved, but every eye near gate seat 19 held still. The twins stood close to their father now, shoulders squared, dignity rediscovered one breath at a time. David rested a steady hand on each boy's back, grounding them. They were no longer alone. 5 minutes passed, slow but heavy. Finally, a woman in a midnight blue blazer approached with confident steps. Linda Graves, airport duty manager, mid-50s, composed like a judge walking toward the bench. Her ID badge was gold-trimmed, rare, reserved for high-level authority. "What's happening here?" she asked. Marla answered first. Supervisor Wallace issued cleaning instructions to 2 minors without verified cause. Their father is requesting a formal review. Linda's eyes took in the scene quickly. The unused janitor cart, the rag abandoned, the twins' strained expressions, the small ring of quiet witnesses. Then she turned to David. "Sir, what resolution are you seeking?" David didn't rush. Words mattered here, each one a brick in the foundation of what came next. "An apology to my children," he said, "a review of procedure, an assurance that staff won't assign labor to travelers, especially minors, without proof of misconduct." Linda's face softened, but she stayed professional. "Fair requests. And standard if verification was not performed." Trent stepped forward quickly, almost desperate to reclaim footing. "I was told there was a spill. I followed protocol." David's voice was quiet, but cut through the terminal like a clean line of light. "Protocol starts with fact. You began with assumption. A few passengers murmured agreement. The woman at C-19 still recorded, not to expose, but to ensure truth had evidence. In stories like this, verification mattered." Linda nodded. "Supervisor Wallace, were witnesses confirmed before action?" Trent hesitated. The pause said everything. "No, ma'am. I didn't verify." Aaron and Miles stood taller. Truth was finally speaking on their behalf. Linda turned back to David. "Sir, on behalf of airport operations, I apologize to you and your sons. This should not have occurred, and we will investigate corrective steps immediately." Relief flickered in the boy's eyes, but David didn't smile. Not yet. He appreciated the apology, but something larger simmered beneath this moment, something unearthed, waiting. He reached into his jacket slowly and withdrew his badge, placing it gently into Linda's hand. Not forced, not dramatic, just truth, delivered quietly enough to rearrange the room. She read it. Her breath caught. Apex Aerospace, Executive Level Clearance David Carter, Chief Executive Officer. Passengers leaned forward, a shift subtle but seismic. The twins watched their father not with awe, but understanding. Power didn't need volume, only direction. Linda returned a badge with both hands, a gesture of respect. "Mr. Carter." "I wasn't aware." "I didn't need you to be," David replied. "My sons needed fairness. You provided it. Let's continue." But Trent paled, because CEO meant contracts, partnerships, aviation influence. And suddenly, his decision wasn't small. It was traceable. Behind David, a silence grew warm instead of cold, the kind that came before accountability. Something had begun, and it wasn't stopping here. Trent Wallace stood frozen, his authority shrinking by the second beneath the weight of the badge he'd just seen. A CEO wasn't a celebrity. A CEO was a decision-maker, a partner or a problem. Someone whose emails got answered. Someone whose calls made policies shift. Linda's tone sharpened subtly, not hostile, but professionally alert. "Mr. Carter, given your role with Apex Aerospace, are you intending to file a corporate-level complaint?" David's response was measured. "I'm intending to file a human one. Corporate involvement depends on how dignity is repaired today." It was not a threat. It was a boundary. Aaron and Miles watched their father, calm, steady, not vengeful. They saw restraint, not revenge. That mattered. David's voice softened as he addressed Linda. "My sons are learning how authority works, how fairness should work. Moments like this stay with children. Forever." Linda nodded, a woman who understood legacies and the weight of memory. Then came hint one of what was to come. Marla, the TSA officer, cleared her throat. "Sir, there are internal policies prohibiting staff from directing passengers or minors to perform custodial tasks. If you'd like, I can retrieve the documentation language for the investigation." David's eyes held steady. Yes. Please. Policies. Rules. The framework he might pull like a lever later. Trent swallowed hard. His gaze dropped to the rag still lying on the tile. Silent evidence of assumption, not fact. A voice from the small circle of witnesses spoke. A middle-aged man with a weathered briefcase. Mister, I've traveled through hundreds of airports. Never seen kids told to mop a floor. He shook his head. You did right standing up for them. The twins absorbed his words with quiet gratitude. Dignity grew like a small light inside them, measured, but burning warmer than before. Linda folded her hands. Mr. Carter, we can escort your family to a private office and complete a formal review. Supervisor Wallace will join us. Trent flinched. Is that necessary? We resolved. David turned his eyes to him, not angry, only honest. You initiated it. You stay through it. It wasn't punishment. It was accountability. The group moved as a unit down the concourse, Marla leading, Linda beside David, Trent steps behind with a stiffness that wasn't for pride anymore. The boys walked with shoulders lifted, not weighed down. As they passed gate C-22, Hint 2 slipped quietly into place. A digital poster displayed a rotating flight partnership banner, Apex Aerospace among the names. A reminder not everyone noticed, but Trent did. His face paled further. Not revenge. Just reality. They entered a small mediation room. Soft lights, neutral carpet, round table polished to a calm sheen. A space built for truth. For correction. Linda spoke first as they all Saturday. This review will be documented. Findings will go to upper administration. Mr. Carter, you may request to attach additional evidence or statements. David nodded once. I will. He placed his briefcase on the table. The chrome latches shimmered. His badge lay beside it, calm, present, unhidden now. Trent watched, knowing something larger was unfolding. Because David Carter hadn't used his full authority yet. But he could, and soon he would. The mediation room settled into a steady hush, the kind of quiet where decisions grow roots. Aaron and Miles sat side by side, hands folded, eyes alert. David remained still, posture thoughtful rather than triumphant. He wasn't here to win. He was here to teach. Linda opened a digital report file. Supervisor Wallace, please explain your reasoning for the directive. Trent cleared his throat. I received comments from 2 passengers that there was a spill. The boys were closest. I instructed them to wipe it to prevent slipping hazards. No spill was found, Linda replied gently. No, ma'am, he admitted. There wasn't. David leaned forward slightly, calm, collected. Did you ask my children what happened? Trent hesitated. No. Did you investigate before assigning blame? No. A truth pinned itself between them, blunt, unavoidable. David folded his hands. Airports run on systems. Security, safety, trust. When those systems fail, accountability restores them. May I submit evidence? Linda nodded. Of course. David clicked open his briefcase. Inside lay not papers, but an internal operations tablet from Apex Aerospace. Branded. Authorized. Direct access to partnership protocols between aviation contractors and airport authorities. He entered credentials, biometric. Confirmed in seconds. The screen displayed a document header, glowing in blue. Joint Operations Policy, Apex Aerospace plus DFW Administration Section 14B, Partner CEO Override Authorization. Trent's breath stopped. David turned the screen so everyone could see. Section 14B grants executive override when passenger welfare intersects with operational fairness and vendor relations, he said evenly. As CEO of Apex Aerospace, I am permitted to initiate review, not only as a father, but as a regulatory partner. This was the moment the title had promised. Not indignation. Not retaliation. Override. Linda blinked, stunned, but composed. Mr. Carter, you're requesting activation? David nodded slowly. I am. Respectfully. Miles exhaled, realization dawning. Their father was not just dad. He was a man with levers, and he pulled them for justice, not pride. Aaron whispered, barely audible, he's not angry. He's restoring balance. David placed his badge next to the tablet, signature object, second appearance, shining like a small symbol of truth. Override activated. Linda straightened. Then, per Section 14B, this incident will be escalated to executive-level review. All personnel actions today become formal entries under partner oversight. Trent swallowed. Meaning, your directive, Linda answered, now undergoes conduct evaluation, retraining review, and supervisory audit. The room didn't flare with drama. It went still, the kind of stillness that only follows irreversible steps. Trent's shoulders deflated. Not destroyed, realigned. Quiet accountability, not humiliation. David looked him in the eye, steady, humane. You have years of work behind that badge. Don't let this moment define you. Learn from it. Grow from it. That's all I ask. No raised voice. No anger. Power used sparingly. Like a scalpel, not a hammer. And that was the twist. Not dominance, but disciplined authority. Linda exhaled slowly. Mr. Carter, how would you like us to proceed? David glanced at his sons, letting their dignity answer. Miles spoke first, voice small but sure. We don't want him fired. Just treated fair next time. Aaron nodded. For us. For other kids, too. David's eyes warmed. You heard them. 3 witnesses. 1 incident. A system realigning. The override was active, and its ripples were only beginning. Linda's fingers hovered above the keyboard, waiting for direction. The twin boys looked to their father, steadier than when this began. Trent Wallace sat with both hands clasped, eyes fixed on the table, shame present but not crushing. He was listening now, truly listening. David inhaled slowly, the kind of breath that shapes outcomes. I'm not here to ruin a career. I'm here to correct a pattern. He tapped the tablet again, not to intimidate, but to clarify. There is a clause that allows me to recommend systemic improvements alongside incident reports. I'd like to propose one. Linda raised her eyes. I'm listening. David turned the tablet so all could see, a blank form waiting for input, spotlighted under Override 14B. My sons shouldn't learn to kneel to unverified accusation, David said. No child should. He outlined his request with quiet precision. Recommendation: mandatory verification policy before staff issue corrective directives, especially involving minors. 2 steps must be completed. Confirm incident with observable evidence. Document witness statements or camera review before instruction. ***. Linda read the lines slowly, impressed. This policy could reshape first response interactions terminal-wide. Trent looked up stunned. You're using an override to make the system better? David nodded once. Authority exists to lift others, not press them down. It landed as the truest line spoken that day. Then, the second half of the twist. A chime sounded on Marla's radio. Operations to DFW manager. Apex Aerospace conference call request. Urgent priority. Linda blinked. From Apex. David leaned back calmly. I suspect the board saw the override notification. Section 14B triggers auto alert. Apex leadership watching in real time. Linda straightened her blazer, suddenly aware of scope. Would you like me to represent this incident during the call? David considered her respectful, thoughtful. You've been fair. Join me. The boys will remain, if comfortable. Miles nodded with bravery. He didn't know he had. Aaron squeezed his brother's hand beneath the table. Solidarity born from dignity restored. A video call opened on the tablet. 3 executives appeared, silhouettes first, then faces. They greeted David with familiarity, respect. Status of override, Mr. Carter. David spoke clearly. No discipline demand. No termination. Instead, procedural reform, supervisory retraining, apology issued, dignity restored. Linda glanced at him, quietly grateful for the grace. One exec leaned in. Your son's good. David smiled softly, the first real warmth of the day. Their learning power aligned with principle. The exec nodded. Override confirmed. Recommended policy will move to joint review vote. Expect fast-track adoption. The call ended, not dramatic, just decisive. Trent exhaled, shoulders trembling with relief. Thank you, he whispered. For not ending my job when you could have. David's reply held no arrogance, only depth. I'd rather you spend the next 10 years doing better than the next 10 minutes packing a box. Linda finalized the report, fingers steady. Policy set in motion. Override activated. System changed. Aaron and Miles stood taller than any title in the room. And now consequences would ripple outward. The mediation room emptied gradually, but the aftermath didn't fade. It deepened. Linda escorted David and the boys through the terminal corridor toward the public concourse. The overhead lights seemed softer now, less like interrogation beams, more like guides. The air felt different too, not freer but clearer. Every few feet, someone stepped aside or paused to acknowledge the family with a nod. Not applause, not spectacle, quiet recognition. When they reached gate C-19 again, the woman who had recorded earlier approached, hands steady now. "I saved the footage in case you need it," she said gently. David offered a warm nod. "Thank you for speaking up. You changed the tone of this day." Aaron and Miles exchanged a glance, amazed that one small act could tip an entire situation. Trent stood nearby, waiting. Not summoned, but present. He looked smaller without authority to hide behind, yet somehow more human. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Carter, boys. I'm sorry. I acted without proof. I shouldn't have. No excuses. No shifting blame. Just truth, uncluttered." Miles spoke first, surprising even himself. "We forgive you." The words, simple as they were, carried weight, like a bridge built plank by plank. Aaron added softly, "Just don't do it to people who can't speak up." Trent nodded, voice low with sincerity. "I won't." Linda stepped forward. "Supervisor Wallace will conduct training and reflection review. He's also volunteering to participate in a rollout of the new verification policy." Trent blinked. "I am." Linda smiled faintly, encouraging without coddling. "Experience is valuable. You can help ensure others don't repeat it." He took a breath, squared his shoulders. "Yes, I can do that. A small redemption, not earned overnight, but beginning." Marla approached with a printed copy of the preliminary review. She handed it to David. "This will enter the executive review cycle within 72 hours. Procedure updates should follow shortly after." The boys watched their father accept it, not as a trophy, but as responsibility. A system revised, not ruined. As they prepared to leave, a passing display screen flickered unexpectedly, a headline banner rolling across the bottom edge. "Live partnership update. Apex Aerospace initiates fairness compliance review." Small, subtle, hardly noticed by most, but a signal of change already blooming. Aaron exhaled, tension unwinding. "Dad, we're still catching our flight, right?" David chuckled gently, the first lightness all day. "Yes. And no one will ask you to mop the runway either." Miles grinned, shoulders higher now. For the first time, the floor wasn't a memory of shame, but of growth. They gathered their bags and headed toward the gate, not as victims, but as witnesses to a system that could listen, change, evolve. Behind them, Trent watched with tempered gratitude. Linda made notes on her tablet, already preparing internal memos. Marla walked back toward security with new resolve. Fallout wasn't destruction here. It was rebuilding. The override had done more than correct a moment. It had strengthened a structure. And the day wasn't over yet. Their flight was boarding. The final chime rolled across the concourse, softer now, almost like closure instead of urgency. As the family reached the jet bridge entrance, the gate attendant, Erin Clark, early 30s, stepped forward. She had seen the incident from afar, and now she held boarding passes in both hands. Her voice was steady, warm. "Mr. Carter, Aaron, Miles, I want to personally welcome you aboard. Seats have been upgraded, no charge. The airline wanted you to travel comfortably today." David shook his head gently. "Gratitude, yes. Privilege, no. That's generous, but unnecessary. We only needed fairness." Aaron nodded with respect. "Understood. Then I'll simply say this. Thank you for how you handled everything. Many people yell. Few teach." The boys smiled at her. Relief, not triumph, filled the space between them. On the plane, they settled into their original seats by choice. Coach, middle row, where ordinary people travel. Where change matters most. Miles leaned against the window, staring at the runway lights that blinked like distant stars. "Dad." "Yes. Did you know you were going to do all that?" David looked at him, not as CEO, not as strategist, but as father. No. I knew only that you deserved fairness. The rest grew from there. Aaron considered that. So authority only matters if you use it right. David smiled. Exactly. The engine started with a rumble, stable, confident. The intercom crackled. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. But Aaron wasn't done thinking. Some people have power and don't use it. Others use it to hurt. I'm glad you used it to fix things. David exhaled softly. Pride, not of title, but of sons. Miles looked up. Will what happened today change anything for other kids? David rested a hand on his shoulder. It already has. Policies start as sentences, then become habits. Someday, someone else will be treated fairly because we spoke. That's enough. They took off, wheels leaving concrete like a moment leaving memory, but not forgotten. Up in the quiet blue evening sky, Aaron traced a finger along the window. Dad. Yes. When we land, can we write this down? So other people learn too. David nodded, touched. We'll write it together. A vow simple as breath. The aircraft leveled at cruising altitude. The world below blurred into soft grids of light. Cities connected not by roads, but by choices. Miles leaned back, finally at peace. I'm glad today happened, he whispered. Even the bad part. Because we're stronger now. David held that truth like something sacred. Because that was the resolution, not power displayed, but values defended. Not victory over a person, but over silence. Trent would train new staff differently. Linda would push the policy through review. Marla would carry witness in her posture and voice. And two boys would grow into men who understood authority's purpose, not domination, but restoration. The seatbelt light dimmed. The cabin hummed. Dignity settled like soft warmth in their small row. The day wasn't rewritten, just redeemed. 3 months later, Dallas, Fort Worth Airport, Gate C-19. The same polished tile. The same high white skylights. But something was different, not loud, just present. A small sign now hung beside the seating area. New policy, verification required before corrective action, respect. Evidence. Dignity. Passengers read it without knowing whose story shaped it. But stories don't need names to leave footprints, only truth. Trent Wallace stood beneath that sign, guiding 2 new hires through orientation. His posture had changed, shoulders softer, tone careful, measured. We verify first, he told them. No assumptions. No directives without clarity. Ask questions. Listen. People remember how we treat them. There was no bitterness in him. Only growth, a man steered by reflection rather than authority. Nearby, Linda Graves reviewed a small folder of training documents. She caught Trent's eye and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of progress made and progress left. And then, like memory looping into present, 3 familiar silhouettes enter the concourse. David Carter, Aaron, and Miles. Not because they had business here, though David often did, but simply to see the place where change began. A moment revisited not for pride, but perspective. David paused before the sign, hands in his pockets, gaze calm. Miles ran a finger along the metal plaque. It's real, he murmured. Aaron smiled. Feels bigger than us now. A subtle hum filled the air. Airport life, unbroken. Wheels on tile. The soft beep of boarding announcements. The ordinary rhythm that had once been interrupted by injustice, now steadied by accountability. Trent approached, not nervous, but respectful. Mr. Carter. What? Welcome back. David shook his hand, firm warm. Good to see you again, Trent. The supervisor gestured toward his team. We teach every new hire the policy you proposed. It's standard now. And I speak about that day, not to shame myself, but so others learn faster than I did. Aaron and Miles exchanged a look, pride, not of winning, but of impact. David offered one more truth, kind clear. You took responsibility. That's the legacy worth keeping. Trent nodded, eyes genuine. It mattered that you didn't tear me down. You built something instead. Thank you. The boys stepped beside their father, taller now somehow, shaped by responsibility rather than resentment. David reached into his coat and withdrew the badge, signature object, final appearance. He didn't display it for authority now, only memory. He turned it once in his hand, metal catching light like a quiet reminder of purpose. Then he slipped it back into his pocket. Authority is most powerful when it doesn't need to be shown. The family stepped away from Gate C-19, not to rewrite what happened, but to honor what followed. A system adjusted. A lesson lived. A story carried forward through policies, people, and one simple truth. Dignity is defended by those who stand, calmly, firmly, when others kneel. Airport life continued. But the floor stayed clean, not because someone was forced to wipe it, but because fairness finally stood upright. Andy, thanks for watching.